I mean, and then here's another thing. I mean, we talked about the diversity of the characters on print. What about the diversity of people behind the pen, who's writing the pen
Yes,
of these comics? You
yes,
know, I mean, let's be real here. And the main books of X Men, there's not a lot of writers of color behind these storylines.
hmm
And I'll be perfectly clear here. I'm not saying that you need a person of color to write a character of color. What I'm saying is have a fair, you know what I'm saying? Like give an open opportunity to that platform. It's like when you got
right.
one vision and one point of view for 60 plus years, you know what I'm saying? Like especially with the source material of the book and what the book is really all about, how could you not tap into that kind of a person who might be able to energize the series more because you know they have a different perspective than you do. You know what I'm saying? It kind of gives you the advantage, not always, but it kind of gives you the advantage of writing that material if you live it. It
Right.
does. This is why
Yeah,
having milestones is important.
I agree.
They have a trans woman writing a side book. You know what I'm saying? A
hmm
spin-off book, which is all right, cool, but it's a spin-off book. It's not the main title. It's not the main book. It's not the main narrative of the whole series. Chris Claremont wrote, you know, British writer wrote classic storylines for the X-Men. You know, and I think the only other person, maybe Jim Lee from the '90s, I think is the only other creator writer I can think who's not white who's had some kind of editorial or writing creative control of the main X-Men books. And he's you know he's Asian American. So and that long line between Stan Lee and Jonathan Hickman, that's kind of scary to look at.
hmm
Between Stan Lee and Jonathan Hickman, to look at that roster of that diversity of creative pens behind the content of X-Men, it's kind of like it's kind of ass backwards. It kind of dilutes the message that what you're saying because it's like you don't even live up to what you're writing essentially, you know, to that
hmm
point. And I hate that because I'm a big X-Men fan. I love the X-Men fan. Don't get me wrong. No one else has done mainstream wise what the X-Men has done in terms of presenting real life issues and troubles and controversies and putting it in the mainstream form of superheroes on that kind of a platform. No one else has even come close to that on a on the spectrum of being different. Being different is difficult, and being an outsider. That whole mantra. So it's really a shame, man, to see that the X Men with this new run is taking this toll, and it really makes you think about when you're reading this book, like what's the intention behind these messages now?
hmm
It's not as what it was before. Now it's like, so are you just basically preaching to the choir now, but now you don't have us actually conducting the choir? You know,
Oh man.
like you
Whew.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yep.
It's like this is our music, but
Yep.
Eminem keeps winning the Grammys.
Oh man.
You
Keep going.
know, like
Keep going. Keep going, bro. And that's no slight. That's no knock to Eminem and
that's no knock to
anybody.
M.
And that's and the thing is, if somebody would take that as you knocking Eminem, that's completely missing the point.
Right, right. I mean, Eminem deserves to be up there, but does he need to win every single? Does he really deserve to win every single year? No.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what we're getting with these X books, where it's just like you're giving us these false messages now because
Mm-hmm.
you don't even practice what you preach.
Because you want the reader you want the reader to be able to read it and think about some of the things that are being presented, but at the same time you don't want them to feel offended by it, or you don't want them to view it as this new term that I've learned called virtue signaling or whatever. You don't want them to feel alienated or as if they should feel uncomfortable with it. But that's bullshit. That's bullshit, and I think that's taking the easy way out of it. I think that is almost faking it. That's almost that's half stepping. That's what it is.
Hmm.
It's half stepping. And Yeah, going back to what you were saying a couple times before in other conversations that we've had. The reason why X-Men stuck the way that it did, I mean, there's a couple other properties that kind of stuck the same way. There's a couple other ones that reached out and kind of tried to touch on those same beats in terms of social issues. But the reason why X-Men worked the way that it did is because Chris Claremont took it and applied it to real life and made it to where mutants were representing some of the issues that minority groups in the world and in America experience. So to go out of your way to make a character like Cyclops, who is the all-American, you know what I'm saying, guy from Alaska that is a straight A student, and Charles Xavier snitch on the inside to make him a descendant of ancient pharaohs, that cuts off the legs. That undermines everything that I think the X-Men was kind of meant to stand for, and that's complete bullshit. There's no reason for that. In this new era of experience in media, this new era of TV shows and movies and all of these things like this, in past times, I can't really think of how many times a character got a proper send off. With the with the most well-known version of an actor getting that send off prior to maybe Logan in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, like let's really get into this for a second. Let's think about this.
Okay.
Before that, I mean, of course, there's been characters who died in movies or actors that walked away from a role, but I can't think of. It's 2020. In the last 3 years, we've seen Hugh Jackman get his send off as Wolverine in Logan, right?
Right.
That was it. He died. That was it. We've seen Sylvester Stallone get his send off in Creed 2 and then announce after it that he was never coming back to play Rocky Balboa ever again.
Right.
Ever again. We got Mark Hamill getting his send off as Luke Skywalker. Regardless of how people might have felt about it, it was a definitive ending for that character to where you're not going to see it again, right?
Right. Yep.
We got Tony Stark getting his send off as, or my bad, we got Robert Downey Jr. getting his send off as Iron Man, Tony Stark. We also got Captain America handing off the shield, getting his send off with Chris Evans.
Right.
Definitive endings to these characters that more or less have become iconic in this era of, consuming media that we are living in right now.
Mm-hmm.
And prior times before that, I'm not sure that that's something that we always got. I mean, Godfather 3 was a terrible movie. That was a terrible movie. I planned on living the rest of my life without ever seeing Godfather Part 3. The only reason I watched The Godfather Part 3 is because my wife wanted to watch it. And I watched it and regretted it because I knew that the death of Michael Corleone was not what it probably could have been. And that movie didn't live up to the expectations of the other two, right?
Right.
Off the top of my head, I can't think of too many other types of iconic characters that got that proper send-off to where it happened and you as a viewer were content with everything that happened because of the execution and everything that happened before. I still think that version of Spider-Man deserves that type of send-off. And if it doesn't happen, there's a small window for that to happen. There's a slight chance because of this unique situation that Sony and Marvel have, to where that's something that can happen. And I hope that it does happen.
Yeah, dude. I mean, can you imagine the opening credits of Spider-Man 3 with the Danny Elfman main theme from the Tobey movies? Like, sending you already in your chills, man, before the film. I mean, one comes to mind, Christian Bale, Dark Knight
Oh yeah.
Rises.
Yeah, my
That
bad.
comes to mind.
Completely forgot about that. Damn. Yeah, my bad. My
Nah, you're
bad.
good, man. Gotta mention Christian Bale, Christopher Nolan, Batman.
Not even Indiana Jones got to ride off into the sunset without some fuckery involved.
Mm-hmm. True, true, true. I mean, those days of being one and done of a trilogy and leaving things closed, it's becoming a little bit more rare. I mean, it's just because these companies want to keep milking and want to keep doing sequels until there's nothing more to be made. Where
Right,
they milk
right.
something dry, and it's like, well, shit. Well, that's it.
I mean,
We're not even financially motivated to get to close this chapter out, right?
it's unfortunate. It's
Right.
unfortunate that we're even on this topic. But like, to this day, I can't even front on this. To this day, I get chills when I think about the end of Fast 7.
Mm. Right. That was a
I,
really good proper send off,
I,
man.
I really, I legitimately, and I've only seen that movie one time. I've
Mm-hmm.
only seen it once. Like, when you look past a lot of the fuckery in the movie, you know what I'm saying? Jumping skyscrapers with cars, and Michelle Rodriguez catching a fade with Ronda Rousey and
Mm-hmm.
winning, and The Rock picking up a Gatling gun off a helicopter and all of that. Like, yes, there was a lot of fuckery that happened in that movie. There was a lot of action movie bullshit that happened in that movie, but that was already the baseline for Fast and Furious by the time we got to number 7, right? But
Right.
the thing that really transcended and made that movie special is the way that they paid tribute to Paul Walker, but also gave his character the send off that he needed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I
Very
really get
iconic
chills.
scene.
I like legitimately get chills when I think about that, because that was something you can't duplicate that. You see what I'm saying?
Nah.
Like, you
Nope.
you really can't make that. There's nothing that you could do to capture the feeling that you got the first time you seen that part of the movie,
Mm-hmm.
to where you literally don't have to see it again to understand what it meant.